Hi, Sai Karate Illuminati, this is Noah, and today I wanted to take a little time to address some misconceptions regarding stances in karate. You see, the word stance is not a very good descriptor for what we call stances in karate. And in fact, Chibana Choshin, the founder of my branch of Shorin-ryu, preferred to refer to them as steps rather than stances. And this is because the stances of karate are meant to be transitional. They aren't meant for you to just stand in them. You see, when people think of stances in martial arts today, they'll generally think of things like this, your classic Muay Thai stance, where the fighter stays more or less in that stance over the course of a fight, switching here and there, but primarily fighting out of one position. So when people see things like this demonstrated in karate and called a stance, they get the impression that karateka are training to stand like this in a fight. And often when you look at some of these examples, standing like that would be fairly detrimental in a fight. And so why would you do that? The answer is you wouldn't. You step into that stance to apply a technique and then you leave that stance. You don't stay there and fight from the stance. Now, to really illustrate this, I'm going to show you an example of those two stances being used in an MMA context, and we'll see if you spot them.
Change my level, bounce them off the cage, and pull the legs while keeping my posture. From here, I can start my ground and pound or passing.
I don't blame you if you didn't notice the stances in that video clip. They happen very quickly because, again, they're transitional. But we can take freeze frames from that video and see very clearly what stances he's using. Right off the bat, when he shoots in to drive his opponent against the cage, he's using Zenkutsudachi, the front stance, to do so. By extending his rear leg, driving forward and putting a lot of weight on that front leg, which has a bent knee, he is doing just about a picture-perfect Zenkutsudachi. Now, that's what gives him the power to drive his opponent into the fence, which he's using the rebound from, to go into a takedown. Now, as he collects the legs and pulls, he switches stances. Since he no longer needs that forward pressure and instead needs the ability to rise and sink in place, he switches to Shikodachi, the horse stance. Very effective stance for rising and sinking, which means he can collect the opponent's legs, lift them, and then drop them back on the ground, and he can pass the legs and go for his ground and pound, using that stance to drop his weight into his punches. Just two very simple examples of karate stances being used dynamically in the manner that they're really intended to be used, as transitions or as steps. They're meant to move your body weight and center of gravity and structure in very particular ways in order to benefit whatever techniques you're trying to do. Very common to hear that karate stances don't work and you couldn't use them in a fight, but that really comes from this misconception that karate stances are like fighting stances. And in reality, they are part of the techniques that you're using to fight, not the way you stand while you fight. To understand that, it becomes much easier to find examples of these stances in use across many different combat sports. They can still be a little difficult to see because of how quickly they tend to happen, but if you put video in slow-mo or start going through frame by frame, you're bound to find a lot more of them than you realize.